All right. So when you go into different meditation centers, you'll be greeted with different sorts of welcomes, and in New York, interestingly, I think there are more meditation centers in New York City than anywhere else in the world. And I've been into a lot of different types just to check some of them out. Checking out is a physical thing, just to see how it is and what they look like, how they're decked out. And when a religious guy walks into a meditation center, it's a bit like, I don't mean to sound crude or sexist, but it's like a beautiful woman walking onto a construction site. It's like it's going to draw attention, and it comes in a way that maybe the person who's walked in doesn't want that attention. But when you walk into a meditation center and you've got your yarmulke and you've got a beard, there's usually, welcome, or... Yeah, the real places you don't get a namaste or anything, you get a welcome. Oh, are you just visiting? Oh, we've got guests from Brooklyn. All the rest. But the one thing that I never experienced and that I always, I remember 6-7 years ago I was in New York with my father, and we went uptown to check out a meditation center, and I made a joke that the one thing you'll never get, because you don't really have a Hamisher Jewish meditation centers. At best, you've got meditation centers where Jews go, but you'll never walk in and get a, no, you stressed? Yeah, a bit of like Yiddishized stress management just doesn't happen. But I want to start tonight with Noor. Who here is feeling a bit of tension, a bit of stress, or just looking for a bit of a detox or an unwind? Yeah. Okay, is anyone here because they're looking for a pick-me-up? Because I'm afraid that I can't help you too much. However, maybe you will walk off more alert than when you walked in. You might be able to walk off relaxed, but it doesn't mean you're not alert. Often people make this mistake that if you're relaxed, you're not alert. Sometimes you can be very relaxed, and you can also be very alert. So last week we did two very different things, unrelated. Because this series is about discovering the meditation that works for you. And so tonight I'm going to do something that's different yet again to last week. But what I want to tell you before I even begin telling you what we're going to do is what we're doing tonight is going to have to fill the time. One of the reasons for a while I stopped teaching meditation here because I hated the fact that I had to fill the time. I don't want to do an hour of meditation. And the programmers would say, but you have to do an hour of meditation. People won't come for less. So I'd say, but people can't do an hour. So why do I have to fill the time? I said, well, you have to, because if we advertise a 20-minute meditation class, no one's going to come. And I actually said yes, they would, but no one has ever allowed me to challenge the status quo. So I've got to fill the time tonight. I don't mean to be fetching. Again, this isn't like, no, are you stressed? But what I want you to walk out of tonight is being impressed that you filled the time. Tonight, I'm not taking a break in the middle. We're going to go as long as the clock allows us. If we had 90 minutes, I'd take you for 90 minutes. If we only had half an hour, I'd take you for half an hour. Because what we're doing tonight is something that you can do over a few hours, and it's something that you could do in literally 180 seconds. Now, the impact if you did it over 180 seconds would be instantaneous and very rewarding, but very short-lived. It wouldn't have any long-lasting effects, but it would help in the moment. It would help achieve a lot in a single moment. However, if we can do this over a prolonged period of time and repetitively over and over again, meaning once a day, every day, or twice a day, every day, or 4 times a week, whatever, but continuously and repetitively, you would find incredible changes in your memory. You'd find incredible changes in your response time to people. You'd find that you're faster in your response but slower in your actual response because you'd have greater control. And most of all, you'd find stress levels have dropped, and in general, you'd feel like a physically different person. And that's not me with a sales pitch. It's me just breaking down hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of research around the meditations that we're going to do tonight. What we're doing tonight is 3 parts. And these 3 parts can be done in isolation, or you can do them as 3 parts in one sitting. The first part is simple relaxation. We are going to relax. We don't want to fall asleep. And the only way to ensure that you don't fall asleep is by trying to stay with an awareness of what I'm saying, so you can hear my voice, so you can follow the instruction. But even more importantly, if you're sitting correctly, you won't fall asleep. And the way you sit correctly is probably the way you feel least comfortable. I read a great article, not a scientific article, it was either in the Age or the Herald, that's where I read a lot of articles, online edition, so the grammar was hopeless. Not that it bothers me, because it's not like I'm into my grammar, but we walk around hunched. People walk around hunched. We may not develop a full-blown hunch, but people are walking around hunched. And after I read that, I noticed people do. We walk like our necks and our heads are leaning forward. We don't walk upright. In fact, when you tell people walk upright, they don't know how to do it. We don't know how to drop our shoulders. We don't know how to be rigid and straight. We kind of slouch. We slouch when we work because no one's chairs are the right height for them at their desk and how they type, especially if you work on a laptop. So we hunch over our computer. We get up and we hunch over to the counter. We hunch over to the buffet. We hunch over everywhere. We're always hunched. Whoever walks around like this, besides the cocky, I don't know, you feel cocky when you do it. It's quite nice. But we are slouchy. And we slouch when we sit, and as a result, we actually become tired because we're not breathing correctly. So I'm not even talking about meditation or fatigue. I mean, fatigue's another thing. But we're slouched, and when we slouch, we don't breathe properly. And often when people experience fatigue in meditation, it may be because you were fatigued, and the meditation is allowing that fatigue to come out, but it's actually also possible that you're not that fatigued, but rather you're slouching. If you're sitting upright, so that's why we encourage people to meditate on a chair, because there's good support and you make sure your neck is upright, you won't fall asleep. It's why, I don't know if you've ever been to meditation retreats or meditation centers. We have them here, but nobody ever uses them. Meditation blocks or different types of stools, either for kneeling or for how you sit, because if you can maintain such a position, you will always have a straight back and you won't be falling asleep. The thing is, it's really uncomfortable if it's not something you do regularly. So therefore, we recommend use the chair. So in that first stage tonight, when we're relaxing, it's going to be really important that you maintain a posture and you maintain an awareness of your posture. And if you're feeling yourself slouching, be sure to expect to find yourself waking up in an hour or so. And be like, oh, Menachem, what an incredible rest. And I'll be like, yeah, no. Well, if that's what you came to get, I'm glad. I mean, when we used to charge for our programs, it was great. Make $10 for putting people to sleep. But I suppose now that we've opted to be able to provide this and not make a business out of the meditation, I don't want you sleeping, because then you're really getting ripped off. You didn't come here to go to sleep. There's nothing I can do for your sleep. So we're going to sit upright. After we do the relaxation, which in its own right is a beautiful thing, we're going to detach ourselves from our thoughts. And that may actually be the most challenging part of tonight's meditation, because it's just so not in vogue to not think. We're always thinking. Thoughts pop into our head. We think about them. In fact, we have so many thoughts, all those popular studies, 50,000, 75,000, 90,000, whatever, however many thoughts we have a day, we actually spend a lot of time thinking, Things pop into our head, we have to think about it. Everything from finances to dream holidays to relationship problems to all sorts of things. Anything that pops into our head is worthy of being thought about. We have no filter. There is no Jiminy Cricket saying, we're not thinking about that now. We just think and think and think. It's time to go to sleep? Okay, well, we'll just think a little bit more. Hopefully we'll be able to fall asleep. And we think and we think. And so tonight we're going to not think. That doesn't mean we're stopping the thoughts. We're not stopping our thoughts. We're just going to not think about our thoughts. And then we're going to transition into an awareness of our feelings. We're going to notice our feelings, and we're going to take stock of our feelings, but we're not actually going to get lost in our feeling. We're going to maintain a certain distance from ourselves while we are within ourselves. I call tonight actually the deck chair meditation. Now, you won't find that in any books because I made that phrase up, and if it exists, the Hebrew term is Baruch Shekivanti, blessed am I for thinking something so wise. So why do I call it a deck chair meditation? Because we are going to be sitting on our internal deck chair. When you're on a deck chair, what do? You just watch. You watch everyone. When you're on a deck chair, like on the beach or near a pool, you don't sit on the deck chair to sleep. We're not in the backyard. We're on a deck chair to just watch everyone else. We're quite comfortable where we are. We're just observing all the comings and goings of kids or people or whatever it is. We're just there. Tonight we're going to sit on our internal deck chair, not to go to sleep, but to be somewhat entertained by what is happening in front of us. And what is happening in front of us will be our own thoughts and our own feelings. And why would we be doing such a thing like detaching from our own self? Is because it's important that we do this from time to time. It's important that we be able to create an internal separation and we get good at it so that when we need it, it's available. So that when we go to sleep, we can switch off. So that when we need to focus, we can say hi to the passing thought. So that when we are involved in a moment of anger or passion, we can say, is this what I want to be feeling right now? Is this the appropriate feeling right now? Is this a feeling that is in keeping with my personal values? And if the answer is no, I can step away. And if the answer is yes, but now is not the right time, I can put it on hold. We're not becoming robots, we're becoming conscious individuals. And we're taking control. Taking control by not taking control. Because normally when you take control of something, you grab it and you move it. You want to take control of a person, you grab them and you move them. Your child's misbehaving, you grab them and you move them. Someone's annoying you, you push them. There's this constant, Hebrew word is tfisa. There's this constant grabbing that's going on. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to take control by not touching. And by not touching, we actually become empowered to make the decision of what we're going to do. And hopefully you walk off A, feeling relaxed, B, feeling comfortable, and C, skilled. So it's simple as that. Are there any questions before we begin? No? Is everyone still awake? Good. So before we dim lights, let's just pull our phones out. Make sure they are, if you have an iPhone, you can put them on Do Not Disturb. That's the little moon-shaped button when you slide your finger up your screen, or you can put it on the aeroplane mode, which is the airplane button. Both of those will ensure that we're not disturbed. If you just flick the vibrate button, it just means instead of getting a dun 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 dun, you get a I don't know if you know, but normally when you put your phone on vibrate, it rings 5 times. But when you're meditating, it rings 10 times. It's a new Apple feature. Anyway, so if your phones are on silent, you can put them away. If you feel really brave, you can put them in a handbag. You can put the handbag under your chair. You can completely disconnect. And in a moment, we will turn the lights out. David's just in time. And I'm going to sit down for this. Of course, I'll have the microphone with me, so you don't need to see me. It's going to be dark anyway. And so once everyone's comfortable, I'll give a clap, and that will just help completely clear this room. It's a very powerful tool if you ever just want to clear the air. If you ever want to just clear the space, and that space might be an external space or that space might be an internal space, if you just clap, it can help clear. It's an old Kabbalistic trick. So there we are. Okay. So we're not going to close our eyes just yet. We're going to do something a little different. This is something that I consider one of the greatest skills that I was gifted with, and that is the ability to just space out. So tonight we're going to space out. So the lights will gradually get darker. You don't have to worry. And it eventually will be quite dark in here. But for now, being that everyone's facing me, so that's good, you're not going to be able to make eye contact with anyone, I just want you to stare at the chair in front of you, or any point. It could be the back of someone's head. Just stare. If you're in the front row, just a point on the carpet. And I just want you to stare at it. It's just a spot in isolation. And as you stare, I want you to start moving your focus more to the space between yourself and the point which you were staring at. So you're just staring at the space between you and that spot. And you'll find that as you do that, there's a certain lack of focus that exists. And when you're comfortable, you can just close your eyelids. You may find that this is a trick that helps keep your eyes closed for the duration of a meditation. And so once your eyes are closed, I just want you to be familiar with your breathing. So you're noticing the in-breath and then the subsequent out-breath. We're just focusing however your breathing is actually the right way to breathe right now. And I want you to spend a moment noticing any sounds in the room. There are more obvious sounds and less obvious sounds. And they're going to be a part of our meditation tonight. Most of those sounds we can't control. So let's just accept them, let's welcome them. And the way to accept them is just notice how they move right past you. They come from one side of the room and they just travel. And they don't really acknowledge you, so there's no need to acknowledge them. They're just moving. So we're not thinking about what's making the sound, we're just noticing all the sounds in equality. So we're going to begin with a body scan. And so what I want you to do is stay with your breathing, but I want you to move your awareness, and awareness is a gentle word for focus. It's just not as extreme. So you're almost looking straight through your eyelids, and just in the back of your mind you're moving your gaze towards the top of your head. So just moving the focus to the top of your head, to the very top where the hair grows. And we'll slowly move down to the forehead and the eyebrows. And just see if you notice any tension or any pain. And keep moving down towards the eyes and your cheeks. Your nose. To your jaw. Is your jaw clenched? Or is it loose? Are your lips open or closed? And down your neck. Is there any soreness in the neck? Any pain that hasn't been acknowledged or noticed today? And your shoulders. Is there any tension that you're carrying in your shoulders? And if there is, just notice it. Where, how deep. And just continue moving down. Down to the chest. Stomach. And just move down the arms. To your fingers. And you can move then down to your midsection. Upper legs, down to the knees, always moving, never quite settling on any space, but just noticing as you move down the body how you're physically feeling in those parts of the body right now. Down the legs towards the ankles, into your feet and toes. And you can just have a mental image of how you're feeling now as you've moved from head to toe. You've identified if there are any sore points or any tense points in the body. If your mind drifted at all, that's okay. It's okay to allow the mind to drift, it happens. And if you find that you're drifting, you just shift back to whatever it is that we're doing. And so now we'll reverse the order. We'll now just gently go through the process of tightening our muscles and then loosening them to attain a more profound sense of relaxation within. And so with your next breath, I'm going to ask you to really fill your diaphragm and take a nice deep breath, and with that, ball your toes and tighten the muscles in your feet. Just take a nice deep breath in, tighten the toes into balls, wrinkling them up, hold that position and release. You just move up to your lower legs and your upper legs. So you've got your calf muscles and your hamstrings. And any other muscles that you feel you can tighten without actually touching them with your hand. Take a nice deep breath in. Tighten those muscles. You might shift your feet to stretch them. Hold the breath and release. And we're just going to move all the way up to the point of contact between our bottom and our chair. Just be aware of that point of contact. And I'd like you, with your next breath, to take a deep breath in, and we're going to push upwards. It's like pushing our pelvic floor up. Take a deep breath in, pushing up as if we're about to leave the seat, but we never will, and release. And with that, you'll feel a possible shift as your weight becomes equally spread across the chair. There's a certain weight of the legs. Your feet are quite firmly planted on the ground. And just move up slightly, and we're not going to tighten anything, but just notice if when you're breathing, it's your stomach that's expanding and contracting, or whether it's your chest rising and falling. And if you can, we just want your stomach to be expanding and contracting so that you're breathing from your diaphragm. Long, slower breaths. This sends a general signal of ease to the brain, lets the brain know that everything is okay, which will in turn slow your heart rate down. And so resting in your lap, you can find your hands. And with the next breath, we're going to tighten them, digging our fingers into our palms. Take a nice deep breath in, Turning your hands into fists, clenching them, deep breath in and release. And you'll find that your fingers unfurl. They don't quite become straight, but they'll just be separate and open in a very natural way. Moving up to the chest and the shoulders. Take a nice deep breath in, and with that you'll raise your shoulders and push your chest out. You might even hunch as if you're running through the rain. Only as much as feels comfortable, but raising it, take a deep breath in. Barreling the chest, hold it, and release. You'll notice that your shoulders fall in a more relaxed way. And although we've relaxed now the midsection of the body, it's important that you maintain an awareness as to whether your back is supported by the chair. And you can now move up the neck into your head. And just with the next deep breath, I want you to clench your jaw and raise your eyebrows, squint your eyes. Just flex any of the muscles in your head around the temples. Shift your scalp if you're able to. Pull your ears back if that's something you're able to. Just deep breath in, tightening as many muscles in the head. Tightening them, clenching them, hold the breath and release. And you might find that there's a certain relaxation as the eyebrows move into a more natural position, less tension around the temples. And now that we've relaxed the whole body, we can just spend a bit of time with our breathing. And what that means is that nothing changes except that as a focal point we'll just listen and notice our breath as we breathe in and out. We can notice each stage of the breath. And if the mind wanders, that's okay. That's okay. As soon as you find that you are wandering away, you just come back and focus on the breath. The rising and falling sensation that exists within. With each breath, you'll find there's a rhythm inside you. As you literally breathe in and then out. And if your mind drifts, just come back. It's very natural to drift if you don't really practice an exercise like this frequently. The mind has been allowed to drift for many, many years. So don't be upset, don't feel like it's ruining your meditation, just come back. And perhaps if you're finding that your mind is moving along, or even if it isn't really, maintain the awareness of the breath and just watch how thoughts pass you by. So as the thoughts pass you by, you notice they come from one part of the head and they move to another. And as the thoughts come and go, as they come and go, you can label them. You may notice that some of them are past tense and others refer to the future. And so as the thoughts just pass you by, label each one past or future. They refer to something that hasn't happened, or they are memory. Or perhaps you want to assign each thought a colour. There might be a red thought or a green thought. And so we're not thinking about the thoughts, we're just observing them as they pass us by. You may notice that your thoughts come and they go in waves. There might be many thoughts and then no thoughts. Or perhaps they drip feed across the mind. Sometimes they're related to each other, and sometimes they're repetitive, and sometimes they're random. And so we're just noticing as if we're just sitting on the side of a highway watching many cars drive past. Not really focusing on any particular one, we're just watching the deluge or perhaps the trickle of thoughts. You might recognize some of the thoughts. They may be ones that visit you constantly and all the time. But tonight we're just waving at them as we sit back in our internal deck chair watching all the thoughts. Because we can't stop them, but we don't need to engage with them either. wandered off with a particular thought, that's okay. As soon as you become aware of it, just move back into your internal deck chair. Give the thought a colour or a label, past, future, and allow it to go on in its merry way, only to be replaced by another thought, and another, and another. You notice there's a lot of space around each thought. Even if there's a flurry of thoughts, there's still space of silence that exists inside us. You can just be in that silence. It's like a night sky. There are many stars, but the darkness exists. And it's a very comforting, soothing, silent darkness. We just notice the many, many stars in that night sky. So to the darkness of our mind, we notice the many lights of the thoughts. We're just sitting back observing. Always maintaining an awareness of our breathing and the sound that it makes, and the sensation of the rising and falling. So now that we've created a bit of internal space where thoughts can exist but don't need to harness our thinking, let's take a moment to reflect on what happened today in our lives. Is it a moment with a strong feeling that you can identify right now? May have been anger or fear or passion, joy. And from the comfort of your deck chair, just observe yourself in that moment. Where do you feel the feeling? Where did it exist inside you? What sort of symptoms were at play? Is there an increased heart rate or a certain pressure or a lightness? What was felt and where was it? What was going on around you? Who else was present? What colours were there? Was there nature or any physical objects in your presence? And once again, where did you feel the feelings? And are you feeling anything right now, or are you more calm internally as you just observe a memory? Are you emotionally connecting with it, or are you just observing it? Completely aware of its depth and its nature, but not taking it on right now. And even if you are finding this a little challenging, you may notice that there's a certain state of calm and inner balance in this moment. And to a degree you are able to observe and take note and identify with it without taking it on board. You're connecting with yourself on your own terms. And you're able to use the mind to respond to an emotion. And then I want you to let go of that experience from earlier today. Allow it to get lost amongst the other thoughts. And just go back to noticing the thoughts as they pass you by. The memory might present itself in a very strong way, and that's okay. You just listen to the sound of your own breathing. Sense the chair you're sitting on, and create a bit of distance between yourself and the thought or memory. Just come back to the feelings of your body, the points of contact between your feet and the ground. Not moving, just noticing your hands in your lap. And the points of contact between yourself and your chair. Notice the rising and falling sensation of your breathing and each component of the breath as you breathe. And just become aware of where you're sitting. Remind yourself of where you are. In a moment you're going to be able to open your eyes, so just prepare for that. And perhaps take 3 or 4 breaths, and at the completion of the last breath, whichever you settle on, you can just open your eyes. You can just sit in your seat for a moment once your eyes have opened in the silence. So, I don't know whether you're used to meditating for 35 minutes straight, but you just did it. So just raise your hands if you found that extremely easy. And raise your hands if you found it. There were moments where it was easy and other times that you found it more difficult. And raise your hands if you found the whole thing extremely challenging. I didn't realize that this was the master's class. Had I known, I would have cranked it up a little. So meditation isn't hard. It's not like running. Running is hard because if you're not fit, you can't run. And as you can see, meditation is a not really doing. It's just counter to Western culture, as we've discussed in the past, to not do and to actively not do it. And so what we did tonight was we relaxed the body. You can see how that works. It's been scientifically evolved since the late 60s. And then we spent a bit of time watching our thoughts. So the first part, there's nothing you need to do. There's no skill. There's almost nothing to nurture. But once we start getting to the observing of the thoughts, then there is a process there. And so just raise your hands if there definitely were moments that you could sit back on your internal deck chair and watch thoughts. And raise your hands if not, that wasn't happening. You were always thinking. So always thinking, or there were moments? If you were always thinking, that's called normal, because that's what we do. We think a lot. So if you don't do this regularly, to just watch your thoughts can actually sound confusing. And it's only once you've experienced it once that you realize, that's what it is. I know what that is. But it's a bit like just watching TV on mute. You don't really get lost in it. You kind of follow it or you don't follow it, but it's just movement on a screen. And so some people, the use of colours, just planting a colour on a thought or labeling the thought, helps bring detachment from the thought. And then the last part of tonight, we went into an emotion without allowing ourselves to get caught up in the emotion. So who actually found that you were able to observe the emotion and identify it, but you weren't bringing it on board? You were able to maintain a certain inner calm in the moment. Just raise your hands if you had any of that. And who struggled with that? Who was like, oh no, as soon as if you went into anger, you felt certain tension, or if you went into joy, you felt the joy. So that's like the thoughts. That's normal because we're used to harnessing our emotions to a thought. So now I'm saying let's have an emotion without feeling it. That's a little different. But as you can see from the hands that went up, it's achievable. So what we've done tonight has two Hebrew words. It's built on a principle of bedtime meditation. See, every night we're meant to stop and do what's called a cheshbon hanefesh, which is a process of reflection. But that reflection should be in a very calm state. And it's a way of letting go of everything that has happened during the day. And it's also a way to be able to learn from what may have happened in the day in a very, very trusting and peaceful manner, so that in the morning you can live a better day because you've learnt lessons, but there's no guilt and there's no emotion and there's no sadness and there's no happiness. There's just a relaxed state of self-observation, and then you stop and you drift into a state of sleep, only for the next day to wake up replenished and refreshed and ready to take on the challenges of that day, built on the lessons of yesterday. So we're not learning, often people say, I learned my lesson, I got burnt. Get burnt once, get burnt twice, you're an idiot, whatever it is. So you don't get burnt. It's a silly way to learn. We learn from self-observation. The cheshbon hanefesh, the internal accounting, the reckoning of the soul is what it's literally translated. And this isn't a religious thing of where someone is judging, there is a greater being judging. Rather, it's us just reviewing. It's like an internal audit. And you make recommendations to self. Oh, don't do that. But not, I feel sick, I've got to make sure never to do that again. Just in a relaxed state in bed. So tonight was a cheshbon hanefesh, even though you're not going to bed. Because we've got Marvinoka presenting in a moment, and we've got more people coming in a moment. But it's something that you can do quite easily. And you don't have to wait for bed to do it. You can just break that meditation into parts and just employ, I want just that part. I'm feeling a bit tense. I'll breathe and tighten my muscles and relax. Or there's a flurry of thoughts. I'm just going to sit down and close my eyes, take a few deep breaths and observe the thoughts. Or I'm feeling a little worked up emotionally. I'm going to sit back and analyze, where am I feeling these feelings? Is it in my hands? Is it in my chest? Is it in my armpits? Is it my legs? Where am I feeling it? And then regain inner control. So are there any questions on tonight's meditation? No? Yes?
I've always thought about this and this book and explanation, which was explanation. What are thoughts?
What are thoughts? Okay, so this is my opportunity to say, come on Monday nights where we discuss these sorts of things. There are many explanations, I'm sure, of what thoughts are. I'll give you one explanation of what thoughts are. Thoughts are communiques from a deeper part of the self. So somewhere deeper within, there is information that is going to present itself to the subconscious, and the subconscious will then present it. It's the body at work, constant movement, constant messages that need to be brought up, and then it comes up until eventually the mind can grasp it. And so then we call it a thought, because there's an image or a word or a letter or a number. But it's coming from somewhere deeper. I suppose I'm not in the neuroscience game. I'm not versed, nor am I qualified. I'm sure you get something there, but from a spiritual point of view, it's an inner component of self, ultimately all the way down to the soul, but thoughts are not the soul. So I wouldn't say, I understand my soul because of my thoughts. So it's a broader subject which I've actually avoided tonight, because it's not so much what are our thoughts as much as we are not our thoughts. Our thoughts are an expression, just as words are not us. They're an expression that we use. So tonight was very pragmatic, and we're not analysing the thought. We acknowledge it and we allow it to be, and it doesn't need to define us in this moment. And with that, I wish everyone a good night.